let's welcome Lucy. Hi. Come have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, hello.
So Lucy, you have so much experience. You work for the RSC. You were deputy casting there for quite a while.
Yes.
You've had your own company for 10 years, is it? Over 10 years?
Like that, probably more than that, yes.
And in that time, you've literally cast for everything. And
well, most things. Yes.
And it's huge shows.
Some of them,
massive award-winning shows.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to put a bit of context to this and kind of go back to the early stages, because I saw that you went to Central School of Speech and Drama.
I did.
So did you start as an actress?
I did. I trained as an actor and I worked as an actor for something like 10 years, and I got to a birthday with a 0 on it and thought, okay, either I carry on with this or I take a different sort of path. I was lucky enough to be to sort of start a theatre company sort of by mistake. And whilst I was starting this company, a very lovely casting director called Sarah Beardsall, who had cast me in the show that we were doing, asked if I'd like to go and help her in her office to help with the coffers, because obviously starting a company had no income at all. So I went to help her for a while, and I rather liked it and started to really kind of enjoy that side of things, and I slowly moved over. It took me probably about a year to kind of make the break entirely.
Is it as challenging as a casting director as it is for an actor in this industry?
Well, that's a really good question. It's very competitive, and it's certainly got more competitive since I've been doing it.
Yeah.
More and more people now are seeing it as a valid career, which is brilliant, which means many more kind of sections of society are kind of coming into the casting fraternity, if you like. So yes, it is competitive. Having had experience of both, I feel that acting is much more competitive, because I think there's so much that's out of your control as actors that and you constantly have to prove yourself, go to auditions, and although we go to interviews and we sometimes just don't get a job or whatever, I think it's slightly easier in that our work speaks for ourselves, whereas when you're an actor you can have a CV as long as your arm, and yet you still have to audition, and it's terribly competitive. So yes, and that that's one of the reasons why I switched over, because I found all that process quite soul destroying sometimes.
Yeah, and it is. Yeah.
It's hard.
It's and you really do have to work to keep your head in a positive space, don't you?
You do,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. When you worked at the RSC, I just wanted to kind of learn a bit more about that. Were you working exclusively for them? Is that before you set up your own company?
Well, I was freelance on my own before I went to the RSC, and sort of put that on hold for a bit whilst I was there. However, Sooki and I we hadn't worked on any projects yet together, but we were great friends. And so when I was at the RSC and projects came in for me, as they did, very, very infrequently, but a couple came in, she kind of covered them for me. Yeah. And then my boss at the RSC, Sam Jones, was very understanding, and I was a new parent at the time, and so she gave me a little bit more flexible working, which allowed me also to start doing my own projects again. So Sooki was the sort of my man on the ground, my woman on the ground, my goddess on the ground, whilst I was at the RSC, and she kind of did the kind of day-to-day running, and we started to kind of increasingly accept projects, and I was able to do them because Sooki was there.
Yeah.
And we officially set it up then when I left the RSC in 2008. 2009, I think, is the first project we did officially together.
Yeah. When you were casting for the RSC, was it... how did you find actors? Because I imagine it's different to perhaps how you find them now. Did you go direct to kind of the top agents? Did you hunt down actors specifically? Because it's obviously very prestigious, so...
Yes, I mean, the process was the same, actually, as the process we do now. Obviously, there's a huge kind of family of alumni who've worked with the company. And when I was there, Michael Boyd was the artistic director, and the history cycle was going on. So there was very much a kind of rolling company of actors that we kept sort of adding to. And in terms then of bringing new people into the company, we just followed the system that we use now. So we used to put breakdowns out to all the agents. We would have conversations with agents. Obviously, you know, I think the biggest challenge I found when I was working there was working with, say, 3 directors and trying to get them to agree, because they have to share a company.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we found after a while that what would happen is that the directors would start sort of trading off one actor against another. So if somebody was really kind of keen on having somebody in their company, then another, you know, they would sort of say, well, if I'll have this person because I need this person, and then that means you can have that person, and who doesn't quite fit into my vision of my play, but we can make it work. So there was a sort of negotiation that went on. I think the most tricky time I had there was when none of the directors were in the country. So that was quite tricky to get them all to agree when they're not even here.
Yeah.
But it's such a massive juggernaut, the RSC, and I think you know, the casting is sort of in one sense the sharp end of things, because we had to kind of try and corral everybody and get everybody on the same page.
And how different is it today? You know, 10 years later, your own company, you're obviously doing a much diverse range of projects.
Yeah.
Are you picking and choosing what you're working on?
Well, you know, we're like you, we're like actors. We tend to say yes to most things. I'm here to tell you, because you know, we've got bills to pay.
Yeah.
And also, you know, we're lucky. We're in such a lucky position in that we work with Mischief Theatre, so that, you know, there's such a kind of huge volume of work for us to do for them. So that's our sort of bread and butter, if you like. And we get really interesting people coming to us wanting us to work with them. And every project has its own merits, you know, big or small. We love doing smaller scale stuff. We love working, you know, we've worked at the Arcola, and we've worked at the Yard, and, you know, the kind of really prestigious interesting venues that are coming up now, and the Bunker, of course, and we work with companies like Cardboard Sits, and, you know, so across the board there is always something that kind of draws us in, because we love what we do, you know.
Yeah. Great. Kind of move on and talk about the casting process and your kind of insights and tips on that, because I'm sure everyone's keen to know about that. So are you able, let's start with it. Are you able to kind of share a little bit about your process that you go through when casting a project? Now, are you using Spotlight or?
Really, we just use Spotlight. Generally speaking, that's our sort of search engine, if you like, and that's our contact with the agents. We feel that is pretty comprehensive, really, and always has been. I know there are other organisations out there that do similar things, but I think Spotlight for us is our kind of, it's tried and trusted. And we have a very, you know, the CDG has a very good relationship, very strong relationship with Spotlight, and we have a dialogue with them. So you know, if we find that something in the, you know, in the system doesn't work, we can talk to them and see if we can get some sort of compromise going. So yes, we you know, the kind of nuts and bolts of our job, I suppose, is going to get to know as many actors as possible. So going to the theatre a lot, going to showcases, watching show reels, you know, going to the theatre is, you know, the most sort of important thing that we do, and we go a lot. So that's, you know, that's where people, that's what we get employed for in a way, is our knowledge and our expertise. It's a never-ending pot, obviously. So we don't know everybody by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, we try and see as many people as possible. So with that, and because there are 2 of us, it means that sort of database, if you like, is spread over 2 people. Which, you know, I'll go to the theatre one night, Sooki will go another night, and then we kind of pool resources and talk about it. Essentially, we get the brief from the director and send a breakdown out via Spotlight. Now, Sooki and I send our breakdowns out to everybody. And depending on the project, we also send it out on the link board for people who aren't represented. We don't do that all the time, but we have done, and we have, you know, the last but one project we did, we sent. So because not all actors are represented. So, you know, without wanting to open the floodgates too massively, you know, if you're on Spotlight, that means you have professional credit. So, but you know, the traffic, as you can imagine, especially for big projects like Mischief, is huge. And I don't want to depress you, but we get, you know, for the last breakdown we sent out for one of the Mischief shows, we got 2,000 submissions for 2 parts. Oh no, actually no, it was more than that. It was 2, maybe 4 parts. But yes, it's huge, and a lot of those people just aren't right. Their agents have suggested them because the interns got control of the breakdown, and you know, and that's mean of me. But do you know what I mean? Some of these people that are suggested, we can sort of put to one side straight away. But we do go through every single submission.
Really?
Yeah, we do.
Wow.
Well, that's okay. That's our job, isn't it?
I know. That's time consuming though, it must be. Yeah,
it is. But, you know, we're fairly good at it. We're fairly quick at it. And because Sooki and I work together, we're not in the same room, by the way. She's in East Dulwich and I'm in Hampton Wick, but we Skype. We have an open Skype. We talk, we discuss every person, or she'll look at one character, I'll look at another, and, you know, then we'll chat about them afterwards. So, but we don't want to miss anybody. So that's okay. That's our job.
That's very kind.
Well, we don't.
I imagine that you go through and like look at a few and you're like, okay, I'm done now. They'll do.
No, because there might be
many.
somebody whose surname begins in Z who we miss. You know.
Yeah.
Or we really do try and look at everybody because we don't want to miss anybody.
And how does it differ from TV to film to theatre? You know, presumably you might be using self-tapes now. I wouldn't imagine you use that for theatre though.
Well, weirdly, it has happened a couple of times. I don't think a director would want to employ an actor straight away from a self-tape for a stage project. But it is, you know, if an actor can't make it to the audition or if the director's not around, then it can be a useful tool to kind of start the process, to see how the actor kind of responds to the text. And then, you know, on a couple of occasions we've done it because we work with a theatre company in Glasgow, and Michael Emans, the director, can't always come down to London. He comes down for a couple of days, but that doesn't always mean that everybody can get met. So we have had a couple of instances where we've had a self-tape and then a Skype interview, which is not ideal, but you know, if that's what needs to happen. Technology is fantastic, so we've got to make the most of it, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
And and presumably the producer and the director that you have on board are having quite an impact on the process as well.
Yeah, they're all different as well. They really are.
Yeah.
You know, some directors really enjoy the process, others don't. Others are quite sort of shy and don't really want to kind of chit chat, which is one of the reasons why we're there, to kind of break the ice and hopefully make the actor feel empowered and relaxed and as you know, their best self, which is hard because it's, you know, it's a nerve-wracking experience. It really is. I remember that. I hated it. I hated auditioning.
It's kind of nice to know that you've been through that, and you know, one of the tips that you said was that for actors to remember that, you know, you are rooting for us in the room.
Oh God, yes. I mean, I never understood that when I was acting, but you know, we're not sitting there going, "Come on, then." It's the opposite. We're, you know, because we've been through this process, thinking, "Well, that person would be great. Oh, I saw them in that play, brilliant." And you know, there is a whole sort of process that goes up and for you to get into the room in the first place. And we want you to be your best self because we have egos. We don't want to say to our director, "Oh, this person's great. Oh, I think they're fab." And, you know, the actor turns up and is underprepared or whatever. Then we feel a bit foolish. So we're absolutely on your side. We want you to be as good as we've bigged you up to be, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's that simple.
When we come into the room, we do performance. I always think that, you know, if you only get to do one take of it, that perhaps that's a bad thing. Is it?
Yes, and again, that depends on the director we're working with. You know, generally speaking, we don't necessarily control the room. We usually kind of let the director do that because this is where the director and the actor are meeting and see how they get on and how they're going to be in the rehearsal room. So we kind of tend to take a step back a little bit there in that instance. So it's very frustrating for us if a director doesn't redirect. Sometimes we can sort of hint and sort of cajole. But, you know, often an actor can have an instinct which is perfectly valid but maybe doesn't match with the director's vision of the part, the play, the whatever. So that's frustrating if a director judges an actor based on their kind of first instinct for the reading. But it's very rare that they don't. Usually they do, we find, you know.
How much say or influence do you have over who gets the part?
Oh. Well, again, that depends on, you know, that depends on the director we're working with. We've got directors who we've worked with for over the years now, and so we have a kind of very easy, very kind of symbiotic relationship with them. We do have influence, but we don't make the final decision, you know. Because obviously we've brought everybody in, so we think they could all do it. So it's a question of who we think would be great in the company, who we think works well with the director. Because sometimes you will get two people together and you think, oh, actually, no, that doesn't work. Weirdly, it's just chemistry, it doesn't work. Doesn't mean to say that the actor in another production of the same play wouldn't be fantastic in the role, but sometimes, you know, a director's vision and the actor just doesn't match. But yes, we gently persuade, I suppose.
Yeah. Something you touched on there, which is really interesting, is that it's not just about the performance, is it, when an actor comes in? There are so many other elements that you're looking at, especially with theatre. Yeah,
absolutely. Because, you know, sometimes we're casting a company that will be together for a year and touring maybe. And, you know, in that instance, you generally need people who are relatively easygoing and are team players and good eggs. You know, that's what we think is really important. So there are many factors at play.
Yeah. So people do need to come in and properly talk to you.
They
come in their character and they're, you know, maybe really nasty. You might be.
No, exactly. And we, you know, I've had this question loads. You know, do I come in character? What happens if it's an American character? Should I come in with an American accent? And I think, no, we know that you're actors, and that this is the magic. This is the brilliant thing that happens. You know, when an actor walks in as themselves and talks about whatever, you know, and then suddenly switches into the character, that's the magic moment. And we all know you can do it, you know, so that's what we love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched on this briefly before. It must be so important for you, though, to have that kind of confidence in your actors. Do you find that you do tend to stick to actors that you worked with before, or that they're kind of leading agencies because you want to know that they're definitely good and you want to make sure you've got that breadth of really good actors to present to your directors?
Yeah. I think it's important that we know somebody's work. Not necessarily that we've cast them or even met them, but I think it's important for us that we know something about their work. So whether we've seen them in the showcase or in a production of something, that for us, because otherwise, you know, it's hard for us to then discuss the actor with the director and sort of talk about the, you know, the good points, the benefits of employing this person. So I think that's important. Now, that's not always the case, because sometimes we might be looking for a very particular casting that there's nobody in that sort of a bunch of people that we have whose work we know. You know, if we're looking for a very particular skill, or you know, then we might bring people in that we don't know. We do send our breakdowns out to all the agents. So we don't just go to Independent and United. We go across the board, and you know, often, well, actors move around agents all the time, so we have to kind of keep tabs on that. Yeah. Our relationship is dual. It's with the actor and also the agent. So there are, I mean, it would be disingenuous of me to say that there aren't agents that we prefer working with, you know, not necessarily the big ones, but certainly some of the smaller agencies who, you know, we go back years with and we trust their judgment. So, you know, we'll often chat after a showcase and say, who did you like? Oh, this person would be useful. Do you think you would bring them in? You know, this kind of conversation happens. Yeah. And then, you know, that we're all on the same side, basically. We all want to make really good work. And so if we, you know, we are all batting on the same team, I think.
You must have a pretty fabulous memory for actors.
Suki's got an amazing memory, so I kind of rely on her.
Yeah.
I've got methods, but I'm really good with faces and not so good with names, which is a little embarrassing sometimes. So apologies. But she's amazing with names. So, but we have a database, we have, technology is fantastic, and all our kind of documents are live, so we can add to them, and, it's a system that works for us.
Yeah. Good. Now, I see that you do a lot of workshops, which is amazing, and it's so helpful for us. Is this something that, you enjoy doing? Is this an opportunity for you to kind of see those new faces so that it's not perhaps such a risk?
Yes, and I really enjoy doing workshops. I really enjoy the kind of, because I know what it was like when I was acting, and I felt, I would go to an audition and be in the room and think, well, I've got no idea how I got here. I don't know why I'm here. Am I even right for the part? It was a whole kind of mysterious process. And I kind of try and, I want to be able to demystify it, because I think, actors, there's so much that's out of your control. If you can kind of grasp a little bit of control back, that you're going to perform better in auditions. So I like to be able to kind of help and share that with people. So ostensibly my workshops are about professional development, and I kind of make it clear, and as does the CDG, that it's not an audition for me or Miss Chief or Jenkins McShane Casting. It is purely for people's professional development, do's and don'ts in auditions. We always have a big Q&A at the end. Now, obviously, I'm meeting people, we're working on a text, I'm bound to see some, I see everybody. So it would be, disingenuous of me to say that I haven't occasionally met somebody in an audition, in a workshop that then we've gone on to bring into auditions. Yeah. But I think that is not the main thrust of my workshops, because I feel that if people thought that, then they would be disappointed, and they would feel that they were looking for the wrong thing in the workshop, which is all about them. It's not really about me.
I'm glad you say that, because I think so many people do go to the workshops for that reason, just to meet you, and and they perhaps forget it's about the development and things. So
and it's there 3 hours or however long it is, and I always say, what do you want to do? This is what I do, but if you want to do something different, if you want to play a game, you do whatever you like. It's because they've paid for it usually. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there key things that you see time and time again that frustrate you about actors?
Yes.
Be brutal.
Prepare. Please prepare. I mean, I can't say this enough, and I know it sounds like, really obvious, but it's so disappointing when an actor that you think is really interesting, whose work you've seen, arrives at an audition underprepared, because, as you know, it's so competitive. Why would you not? Why not? Why would you not give yourself the best possible chance? Now, I understand that it's time consuming. I understand that actors, you have to have other jobs. You have to kind of earn a living, and I absolutely understand that. But from the moment you get the call to the moment you walk into the audition room, that is the time that you have all the control. You have it within your power to do the best possible job. So that is frustrating. And, lateness is frustrating. Again, we've all been caught on the tube, completely, not our fault. But, those things that are respectful of a process. And another thing that frustrates me, it happened the other day, is actors not turning up on the day. And, when I say we had 2,000 submissions and we distilled it down to a day where we met 23 actors, that's a big distillation. And there are plenty of people who we didn't call in, but we could have done, but then we just didn't have the slot. So if people don't turn up, unless they've got norovirus or something, it's just really frustrating. Yeah. So those are my biggest bugbears, really.
Yeah. What about confidence? When you see an actor come in and they're so nervous and you probably just think, come on, just get it together.
We try. I don't know if anybody in this, I can't see you or whether anybody's been to one of our auditions, but we do try to set people at their ease, and it can be nerve-wracking. you know, especially if there's a panel of more than 2 or 3 people, that's very nerve-wracking for an actor. And it's different from being on stage where you can perform in front of, you know, hundreds of people. It is a very different process. So I think often directors will understand that, and maybe the chat at the beginning is hopefully there to kind of allay any nerves. Hopefully doing it more than once will help. You know, if you do it once and then think, oh God, that was awful because I'm so nervous, then if you have a chat with the director and start to unpick the scene or unpick the speech or whatever, then that starts to kind of help relax the room, I think.
Yeah.
But it is a thing, you know, nerves are a thing, and you can make them work for you, but sometimes they work against you, and that's really tough.
It is, and I find so many people that I speak to, it's the auditions that are the nerve-wracking thing, and once you get the job,
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Now, I'm going to misquote somebody. Philip Seymour Hoffman, you have to look this up, but he said, and I am misquoting him, but he's essentially said, brilliant, you're going to a room with a director, you don't have to pay for the rental of the room, and you've got 15 minutes with the director. Brilliant, I get to do some acting, rock on. That isn't what he said, I'm paraphrasing. But you know, it's
an opportunity.
It's an opportunity, not even if you forget about the competition and forget about actually getting the job, just that opportunity to have a sort of mini rehearsal with the director is maybe a way of approaching it if nerves are an issue for you. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always think that our auditions, particularly, you know, well, theatre auditions are a little rehearsal. You get a little insight into how the director works, and the director gets a little insight into how you approach your rehearsal process.
And do you expect people to have... Some people say you should have prepared to a point where you could go and do the role when you go to audition. Like you really do everything that you can, and then before the audition. And some people think, I'll just do a small amount to give them a taste.
Yeah.
What's your view on that?
Well, I would say sort of being match ready is a little risky because you don't really necessarily know which direction the director wants to go in. And if you prepare so rigidly one way maybe, then you're going to maybe lay yourself open to the director thinking that you can't do it a different way. I would say, and again, you know, we don't necessarily expect people to learn their lines for the first round. Again, that's your choice. For some actors, that can be quite a time-consuming process, and I would much rather an actor read the whole script, if that's what we've sent, read it a couple of times so they understand where the character fits in the arc of the story, and they get their own character's development then. I'd much rather you did that than trying desperately hard to learn the sides that we've sent. I've been in a room where an actor, you know, you think you know the lines, but you haven't really rehearsed them. You know, when you're in a show, you learn them, and then you get to rehearse with them over and over and over again. So they sort of go in via osmosis, don't they? But just trying to learn them cold, I think, is a really, really hard thing to do. So, I've been in a room where an actor thinks they know the lines, but of course then the nerves and the strange situation, the alien situation, everything just goes out of the window. And, you know, I think familiarise yourself with it so that you can, you know, get your head above and, you know, and not be sort of script bound, I think is a really good idea. But I would say, and again, another casting director might say something different, but for me and for us, learning isn't the most important thing, but familiarising yourself certainly is.
And do you always do it seated, or do you?
No. Again, it depends on the project.
Yeah.
Because Mischief, you can't really sit down and do that. You probably know their work, but you can't really sit down and do a sort of a table read because it's so physical. But with other plays that we do, other companies, yes, sometimes sat. Again, it's usually the director will say, well, it's up to you if you want to seat. Maybe first reading, sitting down, and then get it on its feet, just to give it a bit more energy, you know.
Yeah. I'm going to move on to talk about communication. So I think it's so important how we communicate with you. And we obviously don't want to get it wrong. So I'm kind of keen to see what you expect from actors. What's your feelings on cold emails? Because I know some people say yes, some people say absolutely not, I'm far too busy.
Yeah. well, we're all different, as you say. You know, I might say one thing and then you get another casting director in tomorrow saying something entirely different. So you need to kind of start to weave together your picture of who we are and what we like. For me, I think, you know, part of the actor's job is communication, and part of the actor's job, unfortunately, is sort of having to sell yourself. So I see it as an absolute necessity that we get shed loads of emails. It's part of my job. It's part of my job.
Yeah.
So you won't always get a reply, but, you know, if you're in a show or you hear about something that we're casting and you know, we get a lot of this because some of our work is sort of out there. People hear that we're recasting something and want to be considered. I've seen the show, I think I'd be perfect for this role. Please, can you see me? Yes, of course you should do that. Of course you should. And, as, you know, as your agent will as well. But I think, personally, that's absolutely what you should be doing. And keep the emails succinct. Keep them short, yes. Just a few lines and maybe a link to your Spotlight page so we can just have a look.
And is it better if you know, there is some kind of reason for the people to contact you saying, I have seen this, I think I'd be great, I know you're casting for it?
Because we've got lots of projects on the go, and it's really useful to put you in the Mischief pile or put you in the Rapture pile or put you, you know, we do film school films, which is a thing, and lots of people want to cut their teeth in film school films. So if somebody writes to us and say, oh, I'm really interested in working for the NFTS, then we'll put you in an NFTS file and get you out then when we're doing the next project. So I think it is useful for us to have something specific that you write to us about. Yeah.
And are there kind of any other ways for actors to get on your radar? I mean, presumably theatre shows are obviously one of the best ways.
Yeah. So write to us if you're in something. Certainly write to us if you're in something in London. We do go out of London because we work outside of London. So obviously we go and see our shows that are outside the M25. It's not usual because often getting back, you know, in the week particularly is quite hard. But even, you know, I think it's really important to let us know that you're up to stuff, even if we're not going to be able to see it, because then we're kind of, you know, you're getting on our radar, and we might look at the email and go, oh, great, he's in this show. Oh, that's interesting. I can't see it, but that's really good to know that he's working. So I think it, you know, it's a sort of chipping away at us. And, you know, again, you might not get a response, which might make you feel a bit deflated, but actually we have read it. And you know, it's a long-term process. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. That's what they said to me when I left drama school. It's true. You know, it's a very small business. It's a very large business. You know, once you're in it, it starts to shrink, and you're meeting people all the time, and, you know, keep a notebook about who you've met or who's seen your work. You know, keep that bit of you, kind of your business head, kind of really active. I think is really important.
Are you able to share anything that you're working on at the moment with us, or?
Oh yes, of course. So obviously the Mischief stuff because Magic Goes Wrong is currently at the Vaudeville Theatre. I don't know if anybody's seen it yet. It's a riot. So we've just put in some people who will start in March. It's now booking until August, but I've sold out, so I'm hoping it's going to kind of carry on. But we've just sort of finished that. Grown Ups, which was one of their other shows that was on the Vaudeville, is going on tour. So we're going to start casting that, I want to say March, but it might be April. Anyway, March, April, we'll start on that. We're just about to do 2 plays for Rapture Theatre, which is a lovely company up in Glasgow. We're doing a Mamet play and another play by somebody else. Can't remember. What is it? He'll probably advertise it on his website, actually. So we've just started working on that. We're also working with Live Theatre Newcastle on a new adaptation of a very British coup, which I don't know if any of you remember. You're way too young, but it was a fantastic. It's a novel, and there was a TV series in the 70s, and Alan Plater wrote the script, adapted it from the novel for the TV. Ray McAnally played the lead. It's about the Labour Party taking over government, essentially, very prescient. And Janet Plater, Alan Plater's daughter, has now done the stage adaptation. So we've just started working on that. They don't start rehearsing till August, but we're just having a look at that now. And what else? We are working with an immersive company called The Lost Estate, and they did this brilliant Christmas Carol that we cast, which was a sort of one-man show that was on over Christmas, and you went and had a full meal and had the sort of Dickensian experience. Oh, wow. It was absolutely brilliant. And so we're working with them now on a show for the summer, which is a sort of speakeasy thing in Manchester with a sort of jazz singer, which is very interesting. Wow. Went to Secret Cinema last night, which we worked on. Wow. Yeah. So immersive theatre, I'm sold. Yeah. Loving it. Amazing. So that's what we're also just finished working with the NFTS on some of their second year films. I love doing those because they, I think film schools, well, the NFTS certainly, the production values are always so high, and we get really good people in to do them, and it's a sort of sharing of skills, which I really enjoy. And a lot of actors who are really experienced will want to go in and sort of give something back without sounding patronising, but to go into a film set where everybody's really inexperienced, but the actor is the one who has all the experience, is a really lovely kind of way of giving back, you know. So we enjoyed those as well. There's one other project, but I can't remember what it is.
That's a lot.
There's two of us. And we
amazing.
Roll over. We do. None of them have exactly the same start date. Yeah. So we're at different stages of development with all of them.
You was it one of the film school ones that won the Oscar? The shorts. With the Confessions, was it? Yeah. Amazing.
Incredible. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. And a couple have since been nominated, either for the Student Award or indeed the Short Film Award. Now, the Confession won both. Won the actual Oscar for actual short film. So it was so brilliant.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Did you get to go?
Incredible. No, sadly. No. But I'm so proud of them, on zero budget practically. And this is why we love it,
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's good. And do you also, just going back to kind of different ways to get on your radar, do you go see short films as well? So kind of film festivals and things, or is it just theatre?
Yes, we do try to go to everything. We do go to short films. I'm a member of BAFTA as well, so I get sent all the screeners around award season, which is absolutely brilliant. My partner loves it. He's like, oh, great, we sit down. But, it is a job of work. I have to watch them all. But it's a very lovely thing to be able to do. And BAFTA will send us links to a lot of the short films that are up for contenders. So we get to see them that way as well. I'm up for anything. I don't mean that in a rude way, but I enjoy it, and sort of when I was at the RSC, I found it very challenging because my daughter was very young. She's now just about to leave home, so I'm much freer, which is, it's great. It means that I can sort of be very much sort of more part of things as they go on, which is the way it should be, I think.
Definitely, it's good. How has casting changed over the years? Because you've done sort of such a diverse range of projects. So how have you kind of seen it change?
Well, I think probably the way that actors think the industry's changed. I think it's got a lot more competitive. I think it's got a lot more kind of driven by money, which means from the casting point of view, often producers will come to us and want a name, which but even before they've got a tour booked or whatever, bookers will only have a show in if they think they can sell seats, and they think they can only sell seats if they have a name. And 'twas ever thus, but I think it's got much more because of the budget constrictions that have happened, because of the lack of funding. I think people are much less likely to want to take risks. So they need a kind of name to hook their show onto, which is fine, but sometimes it gets a bit inappropriate. You've got a long list of people who will sell a seat, but then you're kind of going down the list thinking, well, yeah, they might sell a seat, but they're totally wrong for the part, So it's it is a bit of a compromise for us. And we say, you know, we have a say, but obviously, and the director often gets quite frustrated with that process as well, because often they'll have somebody foisted on them that they didn't really choose in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's changed, I think. People seem to be a lot younger, but I think that's more about me. Having been here for so long, you know. No, I think it's great that the industry is so vibrant and keeps renewing itself, you know, that it has to, and I think that's really important. So yeah, and I think essentially, you know, the nuts and bolts are the same. We all want the same thing, and I know I keep banging on about Mischief, but their journey has been so fantastic, and not one name have we had in those shows. And when they first started off, nobody knew who the hell they were anyway. Now people sort of know who they are, but you know, back in the early days, nobody, and they sold tours and they sold out. So that's hopeful, you know?
Definitely.
Where the work is what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like to think it's about that, but
yes. No, I know. The reality is quite, yes.
Yeah. Do you still find projects coming in where it's kind of predominantly white characters? Or do you think we've still got quite a long way to go in terms of diversity? Or?
Yeah, I do think we've got a long way to go. We don't get any briefs now that say this, unless, okay, so for theatre, we're completely colourblind. Because you're in a room, you're all part of the same process. You have the willing suspension of disbelief, so you can have a father and son who are completely different colours. It makes no difference. I think most of the directors we work with now are on board with that. In telefilm, it's different. There is a different approach. So we try, certainly in the theatre work that we do, to absolutely try and achieve diversity so that what you're seeing on stage is reflective of what everybody is living in. You know, we want everybody to be able to go to see one of our shows and feel represented. Now, that's best endeavours. It doesn't always pan out like that. I think we've got a lot of work to do with BAME actors coming through drama school so that they have the same tools as maybe white actors have had historically. And I think there's a long way to go there. There aren't as many BAME actors as white actors still. So the pool is you know, we have to, what can I say? There are less suggestions of people of colour than there are of white actors. So I think this is transition we're going through, and we will come out the other side and it will all be equal, or as near as damn it. But we are still working at it. So yes, it's definitely a work in progress, and we're not there yet. And we're constantly saying we can't have a company of white actors. We can't have all white actors on stage. It just is. It's impossible. We cannot have it. We can't allow it. Unfortunately, it happens sometimes. Not on our watch, but I've been to shows. You know, Trevor Nunn got in trouble, didn't he? For his I can't remember what it was he was doing. It was a Shakespeare anyway at the Rose, and he got in big trouble for that. Quite rightly so. It's avoidable. You just have to work a bit harder sometimes. I
think, you know, the casting process and what the job that you do is so critical for the success of a production. And you work very hard to get it, you know, to that point. I'm so happy to kind of see like more and more awards being introduced for casting BAFTA finally
this year. Yes, I mean, we have been banging on to BAFTA for years and years and years. You know, knocking on a very closed door, but finally, it's happened.
You've really been kind of underappreciated and undervalued, I think.
Well, I think it's like, you know, I think if you cast well, you don't notice it. It's one of those invisible things. You know, bad casting, yes, suddenly it's like wah, but if you cast a play well, then you think, well, of course that person is that character. Of course, you don't question it at all. So yes, and sometimes we get a bit annoyed because we don't get a credit. You know, people forget that because we're at the very beginning of the process, and then you know we put everybody together and off you go, and you go to rehearsals, and then you know see you on press night. We are not part of that huge creative process, which is what makes the play. So sometimes we get forgotten along the way, which is not very nice. But I do think there is more awareness now of what we do, and you know, it's not about us really. It's I personally don't feel any need to, you know, to have an award or anything like that really, because as long as we get employed and work on lovely stuff and get to go to the press night, I'm happy.
Yeah. You do get to go to all the press nights. And
well, yeah, which is great. And, you know, you kind of see then everything falling into place.
It must be so nice to see.
So satisfying. Yeah. And the best thing is when we give somebody their first job. That is so brilliant. We go and we see them, and they're in the West End or on tour or wherever, and there they are, first job out of drama school, or first job. And, you know, then we get a bit mother henish then, you know, it's lovely.
Nice.
It's satisfying, you know.
Yeah. I've just got one more question for you before we go to the audience, and it's something that I ask everybody. What do you think makes a successful actor?
Oh my gosh. Well, to be an actor, I think you have to have this weird combination of being really sensitive, really observant, really empathetic. You have to be a fantastic listener. You have to know, you have to study the human condition. You have to be open and absorb things and be, you know, very kind of switched on. So you have to be very sensitive. Then conversely, because of the industry and the way it is, you have to have a hide of a rhinoceros because you get so much rejection. You know, even really successful actors have rejection. So that is part and parcel of the job. So your ego is in a very strange place there. I think you have to have a very, very strong support network. I think you have to be very resilient. I think you have to kind of divorce yourself in a way from you the performer to you the person. And I think that's a really hard thing to do, and it's sort of a bit schizophrenic. But I think that is a really important part of being an actor. And don't let either run away with you, you know. Don't let the ego bit get too much, and don't let the insecurities get too much. I know they're part and parcel of the same thing. Be kind to yourself. You know, when you go to an audition, go for it and then forget it. I think that's a really hard thing, but don't try and pin all your hopes on one thing. Spread out your ambition. Yes, be kind of driven, but also realise that there are other things to do. Be open to opportunities. You know, if somebody says, come and do a workshop, yeah, brilliant. Keep moving, keep all your acting muscles flexed.
Yeah.
Easy to say, I know, and I didn't really do that when I was an actor, but I know now, being on the other side, that's really, really important. And those are the kind of actors I find really exciting, the ones who kind of are connected and, you know, I'm not working, I've got a day job, but I'm writing a show. I also do play readings once a month with my mates, you know, just to keep it all. And
they do that in America, but not so much here.
Yeah.
It's growing though.
Yes, it is. And the whole workshop thing is brilliant, but that's professional development. I think your kind of artistic development is really, really important to kind of nurture and keep working. It's like, you know, your biceps. And
So this is why it's so important to talk to each other.
You
can get together and, you know, practice together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And play, have fun.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. Try lots of different things.
Yeah.
Okay, who's got some questions?
Can I have some of this, please?
Please, yes, that's it.
Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for this. I have a question which is very personal to me. I've been very, very fortunate enough to be asked to go into audition next week for a role. It's a small role with understudy bits.
Yeah.
But I am aware that the role is quite physical, and
Yes.
I picked up a knee injury.
Right.
It's a casting director I do not know, have never met.
Okay.
But with the injury, I'm not sure about the physicalities of the issue. So I'm already going in with slightly, I probably won't get this.
Right.
Is it worth going in? Is it worth sort of going in anyway, just to meet the casting director and do the casting with injury, or is it best to say, I'm afraid I've been injured, thank you, but no?
So what sort of injury is it? Would it preclude you from doing the job?
Well, with luck, in about 3 weeks' time, no. But it's, I can't.
Okay, and what's the timescale between the audition and the start of the job?
The rehearsals start, well, if I'm getting it,
Yeah.
the rehearsals would start at the end of February.
Right, okay. I think, and this is just my opinion, I think you should tell them that you have an injury. Tell them that you think that you're going to be fine end of Feb when you've had your physio or whatever it is that you're having. Then it's their decision then. Because what they don't want to do is find out if they want to offer you the role, then you tell them, then they might have to kind of look at their insurance or whatever. I think transparency. Tell them, if it might be something that they don't want to risk on this occasion, but the casting director will bring you in for something else later down the line. I think we get a little bit. I've heard this before, actors say, I should just go and meet the casting director because I know I don't really want to do the job or I can't do the job, but I really want to meet the casting director. But that transaction doesn't work because we are bringing people in for that job and, like I said earlier, somebody else could have that slot. We would respect you much more if you were honest and open and said, I really want this, but this has happened, what do you think?
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. But another casting director might say something different, but I think your casting director in this scenario would want to know. Yeah.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for this. Your personal opinion of the length of a show reel that you
yes.
want to look at?
Yes. Well, I quite like a show reel that has sort of little snappy excerpts at the beginning and then goes on to then go a bit further in depth. That's what I enjoy. So sometimes if you just want a quick fix to remind yourself of an actor, or to see if sometimes we'll get sent a show reel of an actor who we saw 10 years ago and we haven't seen since. So it's quite nice to have a refresh of, what you're like now. So we don't always watch the whole thing. So I think, 4 minutes max. Certainly no longer than 4 minutes, I would say.
And the longest piece within that 4 minutes? Because sometimes it's very short, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's hard, they're really hard to edit, I appreciate that. I'm not an expert on show reels, but I would say probably, as long as we're looking at you, as long as it's not a whole scene with Robert De Niro, yes, but we can only see the back of your head. We want to see you do stuff, So as long as it's pertinent to you, then I would say, each excerpt, it depends on how many you've got, 30 seconds, a minute maybe, I don't know. But ask somebody else as well, because they might say something different.
When you are looking through Spotlight and looking through shows and something, is there anything that's particularly red flag material or anything that's particularly exciting to see on a Spotlight profile?
Well, what we look for in people's CVs who, if we don't know somebody, the kind of signs that we look for, firstly is who you've worked with, what kind of company what kind of theatre companies have you worked with. Do you have repeat business? So has a director asked you back to do lots of things? That's always a really good sign. Again, if we're looking for special skills for a particular show, we'll look at the bottom bit, and please be honest in that because we don't want any mishaps. Your headshot should look like you. I don't want too many versions of you in that bit in Spotlight where you can put several photos. I think 2 or 3, 4 maybe is plenty. Those are the things we look for. I suppose red flag would be the opposite of that. So 104 photos on your page and, nobody working with you more than once. And and I know it's difficult when you haven't got many credits to understand and know what you need to put on, but you can be constantly reviewing that. If you've been to drama school, put your drama school credits down and then eventually bin them as you get more professional credits.
Hello.
Hello, thank you. So I was just thinking a similar sort of spotlight question. So I was looking at it the other day, and I graduated in 14, so now there's all these sort of fun little projects going on, and I think, wow, that's actually just so much to look at.
Yeah.
Are the big ones that are actually really important gonna then be seen? So the question I really have is, do you think fewer are better that are bigger, or actually just show that you'll keep working, and even if it's quite a small thing, like, I just did something in just debates and something like that, do you think having them up there is actually a better thing, or fewer and then being, really strong?
I think you need to look at each credit. I think are you proud of that credit? Obviously you're proud of everything you do, but have a look at your CV from somebody else's perspective. I think something that just goes on for pages and pages too much. I think you always have to keep filleting it. Yes, it's good to show that you've been working year on year. So that's a good point. So you don't want a massive gap where you just did smaller shows, and it's good to know that you've been working, but judiciously fillet it. So I would say, if 2017 was a bumper year, just take out the stuff from 2017 that you think might be slightly less sort of interesting for people to see. It must be a really hard thing to edit your CV, because obviously every job you've done, you've learned something and you've worked with somebody fantastic, and you want to show us that. So yeah, judicious editing.
I'm really glad you just said fillet that, because I filleted it the other day, but then I took out one where I'd worked with the director 3 times, and then I thought, actually now, just with what you said, maybe that's good to keep.
Yes,
because
yes.
I thought, oh, they've seen that I've worked with that person, so I'm actually really glad.
So
to
maybe
hear
2
what-
of the 3.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Hi Lucy, thank you. I just wondered if you could speak at all to people who might have had a little bit of time away.
Yeah.
So I went to Drama Centre, graduated at 21, left the industry at 24. I've had a really amazing few years sort of doing stuff that I needed to do for myself, and now I feel like I've come back in the industry. I'm so ready. I've signed with a smaller agent who really believes in me, but he's not able to get me into the same rooms.
Yes.
And I'm feeling a little bit powerless, just in terms of, I'm not, expecting him to do it. I feel like, is there anything I could be doing to sort of remake those connections?
Yeah. Well, you're here, which is good. Yes, it is. I can appreciate how hard it must be, and obviously since you've been doing something else, other people have come into the industry as well. But you are unique, and you have your unique, your unique experience, which has taken you outside of the industry, but has made you probably a better actor in some respects. So you need to kind of hang on to that. The workshops are brilliant to do, not only with, professional development ones are the ones I do, but there are brilliant workshops you can do with practitioners, which might be good to kind of just start to flex those muscles again. Here is a good place to be. There's a lot going on, isn't there? And keep talking to your agent, and keep, maybe start off small, maybe if you're in the situation where you can do a fringe show, maybe for not so much money, maybe just to kind of get that wheel in motion, and then you can get people to come and see you. It will be, it's not the same as when you leave drama school, where you've got, everybody seeing you. Yeah, but don't be... Yes, I know, but don't be disheartened, because you are a stronger person now, and you're an older person now, so that's all good, and you can probably take the knocks a little bit better. So you just need to keep at it, and just appreciate that it might be a slower burn, and be patient, and do not give up. Okay.
I wrote a one-man show that I put on here in the little studio.
Well done.
Yeah, over the summer I did it. But I found it really difficult to get casting directors to come to it. And I didn't know if there was any advice you had, like maybe making them want to come to it more. Then
Yeah, did anybody come? I mean, obviously you had audience.
Yeah, no, I did have audience, but like industry people, not really, like other than teachers from drama school. And I didn't know whether it's because I was like fresh out of drama school and it was like a smaller studio space, or I don't know whether that changes people's.
What days of the week did you do it?
It was I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays.
Okay, so it was in the week, yeah. Because often weekends are not great for us because we do need a bit of time off. Did you do How did you mail out? What did you do?
So I just sent a lot of emails out to people and mentioned obviously like type of stuff I like to do, what I'd like to be cast in, and obviously targeted casting directors that I cast those things.
Yeah.
But it's just a lot of no replies really.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know what.
apologise for
No, it's
all of
fine.
the
It's fine.
CGG, but it is
I don't know
tough.
if I'm doing something wrong in the way I contact people.
No, I mean, you're right to target people who you think would be interested in your work, on whose work you're interested in. Have you got a film of it?
I do, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
one thing I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing to send off? Like,
Why not?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a half an hour, like it's the first ever version I did of it in there, but it might be good just for people to see.
You could edit it. You could do a little 5 minute, get the best 5 minutes, or the first 5 minutes, or something.
Okay.
If you think the quality is high enough, if you think it gives a good representation of your one-man show, then maybe that's the thing to do, and write to casting directors and put a link. Then when we're sitting in our office having our coffee, we can have a quick look, you know. So it's sort of about making it as user-friendly as possible, I suppose. And you know, we do get invited to an awful load of stuff, and this is a bad thing to say, but I'm going to say it nonetheless. You know, if we go to see a show that's got 10 people in, it's much more useful than seeing a show with one person in, because we get 10. You know, we get to see 10 actors work in one evening, and if Sooki does 10 as well, that's 20 actors we've seen. You know. And I appreciate that doesn't help you, and I think it's brilliant that you've done a one-man show, and you should carry on. But that might not be the best way to get casting directors to see you. But certainly send a link. I think that's a really good idea I had there. Yes, I think you know, make it easier for us maybe.
Okay, thank you.
And keep at it, and do other shows where there are other people involved as well.
That's really impressive. It's so proud.
Really, really
No,
impressive.
thank you. Yeah, it was the John Ford thing. Do you know the graduate season they did this summer? Yeah, so I was lucky to get picked for it. It was really good. Yeah.
And was Joel who runs? Yeah, he's
lovely.
brilliant, isn't he?
The opportunity, Michelle
He's
and Joel.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's got such big ideas for this place. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Not at all.
Lovely. I think we'll have to end it there. Thank you so much, Lucy.
Oh, well, you're welcome. It's so nice to see you all. Thank you. Hello.